Hello friends, thank you for joining me today. If you've been following my videos about communicating with nature, well, today I'm going to give a special tool that can really bring us a long way in that direction. On the surface, this tool sounds like something that we all know about, imagination. In fact, I've spoken about it a little bit before in some of the other videos in this series. But today I'm going to show you how to use imagination in a very particular way to shift your mindset. Now, I use that word mindset, and my friends, I want to come back to this again and again because there is a very powerful normalcy that comes over us once we get used to a certain way of being. And for most of us, for instance, we are in our culture, and our culture can seem normal to us. It takes something special for us to step outside and go, wait a second, this may be a little goofy, some of this. Whatever culture we happen to be in whatever time we happen to be in, that is the one that often seems like the way life is. And it's tough for us to see outside of that. And this goes also for our just general operating system, the basic view or lens that we put on the world. We don't think we have one. We just think that we're seeing the world as it is, but we're always seeing the world very colored by a filtration system. Maybe you, like me, have had some moments when suddenly you flicker out of that filtration system into another one or into something else that allows you to experience the world differently. This happens quite often for me, and I seem to remember my child vision, and the world suddenly not just looks different, but is different because the filtration system is, again, I'll use that word powerful. The filtration system shapes all our perceptions, so much so that it changes the basic reality we interact with. The result is that we have a different feeling of life or sensation of life based on the operating system, the filtration system that is being used by our mind at any given moment. So this tool helps you to shift out of your current operating system and into something else. Because I often say this myself, and I think it's the way most of us think of it. Children, they have loads of imagination, and they use it for all kinds of fun things. So they are engaged in all these imaginary things in their heads. If you had a childhood like mine, you did tons of imagining, and you maybe played with action figures and they had personalities and battles and dramas, and I went out into the woods with mullen sticks and battled orcs and had grand adventures. Then, of course, we become adults, and the common assumption is that we lose our imagination. But look carefully. This is kind of interesting. What if we never lose our imagination? What if we see that as adults, we keep all of our imagination, we just stop using it for ourselves, and we start taking other people's imaginations as our current imagination fodder. And because we forget we're imagining, then we take our imaginations as realities. A common example I use is the idea of money. Money seems very real. People kill each other for it and do terrible things for each other for it. And you can do wonderful things with money. It's this amazing force in the world. But we can forget that it is a consensus reality. It's not something that has been here for all time and probably won't be here for all time. It is something that we currently use in our culture as a means of exchange. And that is its reality, a consensus reality, because you and I both place value on the money, then it has value. If everybody said, no, we're not going to use money as a medium anymore, we're going to do something else, the money would become valueless. It is not God given inherently valuable. In other words, it's basically a grown up imagination game that we're playing. And we create our whole culture, all the ideas that we live by, all the laws and our government and everything else are things that are created. And we could see those things as parts of adult imagination. And it's not just these exterior things that we use our imagination for. As adults, most of us have a very rich, I don't know if I should use that word rich, a very overactive imaginary life that's going on in our head, where we have these dialogues and we are imagining past conversations and future conversations and what if this and what if that, and spending time in rumination and anxieties, all kinds of things that our imagination, our mind, rolling and roiling. So much so that most of us have lost control of that, and it can take over our life. So just as you can see some children playing around a table with some action figures and they're completely lost in their imaginary world, we adults become completely lost in our imaginary world. So much so that it can be difficult to see outside of it. Now, that tool. The other day, I was watching some of the crows that have been flying over. I always wonder about crows. They always seem to be off on some mysterious errand, almost like they kind of move between worlds or something. And they were flying over. And remember my old video on shape shifting? Well, the concept there is that you see something like a crow flying, and you use your imagination to feel your own wings spread out, to imagine what the ground looks like beneath you, the wind moving over your face, your feathers. And for a moment, you pretend, use your imagination to try to approximate what it might be like to be a crow. Now, when I go out into nature, if I start to do this, and I'm going to suggest that we can do this even to the point of making it our new normal and our new habitual, something happens when I glance at a tree. I don't just see a tree. For a moment, I feel that bark wrapped around my body. I feel my roots going into the ground. I feel my branches up in the sky. If it's sunny instead of wintry like this, I feel, oh, that sunshine just being absorbed in through my leaves. Now, at first, this might feel foolish. Well, here I'm sitting here imagining these things, and we might ask ourselves, is my imagination getting in the way of actually perceiving what's around me? That second, especially, there's some truth to that. But a bigger truth is that probably our mind would be otherwise engaged in some other imagination that would not create the feeling of connection that we're feeling with that tree or that crow. So if I say, all right, I'm not a Zen master, I'm not going to be pure perception yet, I'm going to go ahead and take imagination, which is usually operating inside of my mind without my permission, without my guidance, and I'm going to use it consciously, then suddenly I can start to feel myself a little closer and more intimate with so much of nature because I feel, or at least I imagine I feel, what it's like to be a squirrel, to be a snake, to be a mosquito. And this stops me. It helps me to observe. Take that mosquito. The mosquito might just land, and annoyed, I swat at it. In a different state of mind, I watch it, I look at it. I had a wonderful student and friend now who became friends in a strange way with the mosquitoes, and she would let them bite her sometimes. And we can sit and we can watch that mosquito and we can imagine, what is that like? Oh, to insert and to drink that precious little drop of blood. Now, to start to integrate this into my mindset, I can go for imagination walks, shape shifting walks, where I go out for just a short walk and try my best to imagine being in, oh, blue jay, and in maple tree, and in rock with the moss growing on it, and in the moss. And we don't even have to stop at things that we equate with nature. I might feel what it's like to be my boot falling into the snow with each step. And I might feel what the snow feels like taking in my boot. There's all kinds of interesting side benefits to this. Not just that we start to get curious about the world around us in a new way, not just that we turn off our chattering mind and we start using some of our mental faculties more consciously, but for instance, what if I do this with my keys when I take them out of my pocket and I put them into a drawer, or I set them up someplace that might otherwise be a place that I'd forget about them, up on this countertop. But when I do it, I am the keys and I feel them resting there on the countertop, and they feel themselves next to that blue vase. I've placed it in my mind in a different way with consciousness rather than just setting it down mindlessly and walking on. And what are the chances I will lose my keys now? I'm probably going to remember where they are because I've created a story around putting them down. I know this might seem like, oh wow, this would be way too much effort. But as you develop it more and more, it is not so much effort. In fact, we realize how much time and energy our mind was spending just in our rumination, just in all these funny thoughts that we usually engage in. And it can feel like somewhat of a relief. I was spending 100 energy points on just fretting about this or that, and it only takes maybe 20 or 30 energy points to consciously apply imagination. Plus, the imagination thing is a lot more fun than that fretting or rehearsing a conversation I'm going to have tomorrow over and over in my head. The imagination opens the door to exploration and curiosity and adventure and wonder. This is a tool that I have explored at various times in my life, but right now I'm taking it to new levels and it's yielding some really fun results. I'm really drawn right now to these sorts of things that don't take a lot of discipline or willpower. I've spent a lot of my life trying to forge willpower and discipline, and that bears wonderful fruit. But there's also something to making things fun, to making things into games, to getting our mind to want to do something without us having to force it at all. And that's what this game becomes. It becomes such a fun application of imagination. Tell me if you do something like this. Tell me if you try it out. And if you try it out for a while, tell me if it bears fruit for you. Okay, my friends, thank you for watching as always, and I can't wait to talk with you in the comments.